This week on the Deep Leadership Podcast.
Certainly leadership abounds in the military, and your focus has been on leadership, John, and we appreciate you for that. And leadership comes in a lot of shapes and sizes and colors and everything else, but it's leadership, and that's what we need in a time like this.
This episode is brought to you by the Salty Sailor Coffee Company, the official coffee of the Deep Leadership Podcast. Salty Sailor is a veteran-owned coffee brand on a mission to deliver premium, fresh roasted coffee while making a positive impact in the world. Their motto is drink coffee and do good, which reflects their commitment to making amazing coffee and actively supporting the military community. 10% of every order goes to the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, an organization dedicated to helping sailors, Marines, and their families in times of need. All our listeners get 10% off every order of their amazing coffee by using the discount code DEEP at checkout. So check them out at saltysailorcoffee.com. Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Tom Burbage and Fred Stuvek. Tom and Fred are both returning guests to the show. Tom is the president of the Calvert Task Group. He retired from the Lockheed Martin Corporation in 2013, where he had served as the president of the Lockheed Martin Aeronautical Systems Company and the executive vice president and general manager for both the U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor and F-35 programs. Tom was a Naval Aviator where he accumulated more than 3,000 hours in 38 different types of military aircraft and retired as a U.S. Navy captain in 1994. Fred also has achieved extraordinary success in diverse realms. He graduated from the Naval Academy, lettering 3 years as quarterback, and after military service, he transitioned to the business world, holding senior positions in private and public companies. He is an accomplished author, and his most recent book, The Experience of Leadership, is the high water mark in the assessment of leadership by providing practical, actionable, and realistic insights into the leadership process. Fred's leadership and accomplishments have given him a distinct perspective as a results-oriented leader. Tom and Fred are both co-authors of a brand new book called Don't Give Up the Ship, Woke Politics Are Endangering Our Military and Our Nation. Now, in this book, 17 former military officers, mostly U.S. Naval Academy graduates, applied their insights shaped by combat, command, and senior leadership experience to illuminate the divisive threat to our military. This book warns how politics are eroding the core Navy values and its readiness to defend the nation. I'm honored to have Tom and Fred back on the show to better understand their concerns. So Tom and Fred, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
It is an honor to have you both back on the show, and especially to talk about this important issue. But first of all, get us started. What is the Calvert Task Group, and what do you guys do?
Calvert Task Group is a group of classmates, former squadron mates, not all Naval Academy, but mostly Naval Academy. And we used to be social. We'd get together and talk about our careers, where we were really somebody way back when, play some golf, that kind of stuff. But we couldn't remember each other's email addresses, so we called ourselves the Calvert Group, named after the superintendent when we were there, who a number of us served under. So very, very famous naval submariner, actually. We came off the couch and we came off the golf course because we were concerned about some things that were happening in our military and our Navy. And most of us who spent our careers doing that think of that as our Navy and our military, maybe a little possessively. But and so we decided to get active and started writing some op-eds and opinion pieces and trying to increase awareness and basically help the general public understand that our military is not the same as retail operations or societal norms. It requires a special brand of leadership, and we were concerned that was eroding. And Fred, you want to add anything to that?
No, I just, as Tom mentioned, we just see there are a lot of things going on in programs that we've heard about that are basically inconsequential to military effectiveness. I mean, John, as you all know, it boils down to honor, accountability, capability, and leadership. And we don't really care about what color, race, whatever this other person is. as you wrote in one of your books, I mean, you run to the fire, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so when you're running to the fire, you want your best people there, right? You want the people who have met the highest standards possible and can perform, because it really is, it's like Tom said, this isn't, you know, a corporation. It's a military unit where there are lives at risk and nations and citizens' freedoms at stake.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, kind of what I was thinking is that why now? Why did you both are outstanding military and business leaders. You've had a successful careers. You're also successful authors, both of you. Why did you feel it was time now to step up and write about your concerns? What is it that you're seeing that really kind of made it stand out that this is a time to speak up?
I think it's been a learning experience. You know, you start out not really understanding what's going on, particularly when you're in your retirement years and you're really looking to relax and play with your grandkids and do those kind of things. And suddenly you wake up one morning and you say, what's our legacy? What are we leaving for our children and our grandchildren? Generations that preceded us went to war and preserved our Constitution. And everyone today takes an oath to do the same, but we're finding that a lot of people don't honor that oath. And so we're concerned about the path the country was on, particularly the military. And we started small. We started looking at the service academies. There's a similar group at Air Force. There's a similar group at West Point. All of us had some concerns that the bandwidth for developing leaders out of basically high school kids that come from a wide variety of different home styles have 4 years to convert them to be the next generation of leaders going out into the fleet. And that 4 years was being consumed by things other than developing leaders, in our opinion. And we started digging into that, and that led us to learn more and more about what's actually happening, not just at that level, but at the policy level in the Department of Defense and the policy level at the national level. So we've successively raised the bar on what we're looking at, but it all kind of runs together because it's all functioning in the same environment.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things you just mentioned is that you've got 4 years with respect, to training up a naval officer, right? Whether it's ROTC or the Naval Academy, you've got 4 years to get it right, and then you're sending this 22-year-old out into the fleet, right? And in my case, I was, a nuclear submarine which had a nuclear reactor, nuclear weapons, high stakes position. So what was really important was meritocracy, which was you'd better know what the hell you're doing, right? Because you're going to be, you need to have the right skills and the right character traits to be able to do this. So is it now that you feel that we're not focusing enough attention on those, the skills and the character traits that are needed for these really high risk positions?
I think that anytime you open the standard, lower the standards and open the aperture, you by definition lower the bar. And that's part of the process of working under what's called the diversity, equity, and inclusion ideology that's sort of infiltrated, starting with the universities, going down all the way down into the elementary schools, and then going up into the service academies. And in our opinion, the last group that ought to be forced into that kind of an environment is the military development groups. So yeah, that's exactly right. Fred?
Yeah, John, I mean, I think you would agree with this. You mentioned the word meritocracy. I mean, I think leadership in our military should be based on merit and performance. And we're just seeing we're seeing a whole array of initiatives, such as DEI, which, erodes meritocracy. And, you can't segregate people by ideology or by using identity politics or things like that. And, meritocracy does not conflict with diversity. No group has a monopoly on excellence. You set the bar here, you have these standards established, and you cast a wide talent, and you just objectively put the best person in that position. And again, it doesn't matter who that person is. And that's why I like particularly remember the don't ask, don't tell?
Yeah.
That was fine. Okay. You don't care. Okay, you just want the best person. Okay, and when you run into that fire or you're in a tough situation, your life and the lives of your teammates are at stake, and you need to put your best foot forward, the best person forward, and have the most capable unit that you can put out there. It's all about cohesiveness, unit performance, teamwork, accountability.
It makes a lot of sense. Let me push back on you a little bit, because one of the things, one of the early guests I had on the show was one of the first female submarine officers. And when I served in the submarines, it was an all-male crew, right? And actually, when I was on board, they were sending congressional groups out to visit with submariners to get our opinions about mixed crews. And of course, we were told what to say by our commanding officer. But anyways, so we weren't free to have our own opinion. But
yeah.
What's interesting is that my in talking with her, my sense of things is that she had the same difficult road that I had to become a qualified submarine officer, and then some. In other words, she had, not only did she have to deal with nuclear power training and getting through nuke school, prototype submarine school, but then when she got to the fleet, it was a crew that hadn't had women on before, and so she had to deal with people not knowing what to look at, or how to act around women. So anyways, but by the end of our discussion with her, I had a high level of respect for what she had gone through. Not only had she had to do everything I did, but then she had to do even more, because she was one of those early female submariners. And her story was interesting. She said, I wanted to be a submariner, but I couldn't be a submariner until they finally opened it up. And then I had that opportunity, and I went for it. So to me, I saw that as a good thing, that she got to serve and she got to do everything I got to do. And I don't know that she had any less, at least, when she went through they didn't lower the bar for her. It didn't sound like to me. What are your thoughts about that?
Go ahead,
Tom. No, I was just going to say something that, we don't want to stereotype anybody. We want to treat everyone, based on their performance. And we have to remember, John, you're talking to the wrong people here. Okay. The military is under civilian control. We did not make those rules, and we follow orders. And, Tom, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I have a similar story. My daughter is a Naval Academy graduate, and the pioneers that are on the front end of any transition always have a tougher time, I think, establishing their reputation within that community. When she was class of '93, when she entered the fleet, aviation shipboard slots were not available to women, and she was a civil engineer, and she basically was one of the leading edge group, that's gone through. Now, women are quite capable pilots. We have one of our guys is a Blue Angel. There's a female Blue Angel pilot right now. There's a female Thunderbird pilot. They're very capable pilots. Are they capable for the special ops, combat arms? There's been an attempt to move females into that role, but there's biological challenges on that males don't face. So there's certain areas that it just makes it difficult. We're not talking about those at all. We're talking about, performance being the primary criteria for promotion and for selection. And what, in our view, what's happened in the last 10 years or so, it's not an overnight sensation. This all started back in the 2011, 2012 timeframe when these policies were being put in place. And what's happened is that in order to increase the demographic signature, the candidate pool, by definition, in many cases, is not as qualified as it has been in the past, and therefore you lower standards to allow a broader population to enter the fleet. That's okay in some cases. I heard a good statement the other day that said those kind of ideas are okay in things like Starbucks or retails or things that don't involve life and death and combat. You trust Jim Webb, who's the former Secretary of the Navy, made a statement one time that the military provides leadership, but it's the civilian kids that fight the wars because they either get drafted or they volunteer to go in. You want that group of people to have the best leadership they can possibly have. That's in a thumbnail. That's kind of what we're all about.
Mhm.
Yeah, now that makes sense. I mean, like I'm with you. I think Fred, you said that no group has a monopoly on talent, and you're exactly right. But I think what you both are saying is that the uh the standards have to be maintained at a very high level for these kind of jobs. They're very dangerous. My son is in the Navy. He's he's on a destroyer, and I want to make sure that
Yeah.
the person to the right and the person to the left of them are qualified. They know what they're doing, right? And and so they're not going to make a mistake that's going to cost my son his life, right? So I want and again, I think I talked to you, Fred, before we press record, is that he's had two great commanding officers. So, he's had a good experience, but just like sometimes you get the roll of dice, you get a bad leader, and you get, so I think that's a concern. If we are lowering our standards, I think that's something that we have to be very concerned about.
Yeah, and John, just to echo your point, I think the average person feels the same way we do, and there are a lot of people out there, citizens of our country, that have family members, relatives, friends in the military, and they deserve the very best leadership and the very best teamwork and the very best unit delivered, as possible. Because, as you said, it is a matter of life or death, and it is a matter of national security.
Yeah. And I don't think we're saying at all that that the quality of the candidates or the graduates that are coming out of service academies are being questioned. We're not saying that. We're arguing the policies that are forcing in identity politics, that are forcing in racial separations. If you look at just the curriculum that has eroded over some time away from STEM, science, technology, engineering type courses to more of the humanities, the influx of academic professors versus active duty officers that come through for a tour as a professor or a teacher. When we were there, it was more the other way. You had your role models walking around because they were your company officer. In some cases, they were a professor in one of the courses you were taking, and you could see what real military officers look like. That's changed quite a bit in the past. Part of it's because service academies are competing with Ivy Leagues now for the top tier students coming out of high school. Part of it is the erosion of the high school kids and what they're being taught. It's right here in my own neighborhood. I was talking to my next door neighbor, and he's basically pulled his kids out of middle school and is homeschooling them at home just because he doesn't like what they're being taught in class. So we're sort of focused on the military. We're focused on that we grew up with, but it's societal in general. And so I think if you ask us what our real mission is, it's not to challenge the service academies or anything else. It's to increase the awareness that there's a constitution. We're a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. We swear allegiance to that constitution. That means something when you take that oath. Perhaps it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And we're seeing an erosion around the edges of what this country has stood for up to this point in time. And be aware of that as you enter this next election phase that we're going into. Educate.
Yeah, and John, and I'd just like to point out what Tom said. I mean, really what we're about is awareness, education, and a call to action. And it's because of the issues that we're raising. And we're seeing it play out in front of us. If what do you look at? You look at recruitment, you look at retention, and you look at readiness. Now, how do it's not playing out very well right now, is it? No. The recruitment is at all-time low, I think, except for the Marine Corps, and there's a reason for that. The retention rates are terrible, and our operational readiness, as in the military, particularly the Navy, is the worst it's been in decades. And it's not going to get any better unless we do something about it.
Is there anything that you guys bring up? One of the things that I hear a lot from veterans is, this idea that today we have more admirals than we have ships, and that we become a top-heavy Navy. Is that something that you discuss in the book, or is that just a point for another day or another book?
I think what we're more concerned about is the numbers will have to be, moved around by other people that are above us. But what we're concerned about is the criteria for promotion. If you look at if you look at incentives, they come in my view, they come in two forms. There's either financial incentives or there's promotion incentives. And if you're a promotion-based organization like the military is, then it becomes very important to know what's going to get you to the next rank. And sometimes you've got to question whether or not the incentives are on the side of the warfighter, and lethality and everything that the military represents, or whether they've morphed into something that's a little less like that. I'm no longer on active duty. Most of us are not. We're retired. We don't sit on the promotion boards, but we know what they used to be like, where it was very important how you performed in your squadron, at the wing level, at the ship level. Sometimes you wonder, and observing the behavior in some key positions also causes concern. There's been plenty of examples.
Yeah, I think one of the things, again, I talk to a lot of veterans on this podcast. One of the areas I see, it seems to be a lack of accountability when we screw up, when the military does screw up. I think the pullout of Afghanistan is a great example of that no one got fired. The only one who got fired was, I think it was a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps who stood up and said, "Why is no one being fired?" And he actually lost his job. So the question is, it seems like we've missed accountability. I mean, the good news is I still see Navy captains losing their commands when they run into things. That's important. But it seems like the accountability is lost at the highest levels in the military these days. I don't know if what your thoughts are on that.
I think there's been several high-profile examples of that. And I don't think you can deny that is an issue. Doesn't mean that it's throughout. It's a disease that's throughout all the flag and general officers, but it means there's an element there that's, again, I think, tied to some of the policies that are in place right now.
Yeah. So what solutions do you both provide, or others that are written in the book provide, to help address these concerns?
I think, there's a couple of things about the book. The book, we started writing these op-eds and these opinion pieces back before COVID even. It was like 2021. So we've been doing it for 3 or 4 years. And they get published, and they have a shelf life. As you know, news has a shelf life of maybe 48 hours, or if you're lucky, maybe 96 hours. And then they sort of disappear and they get overtaken by the next thing that comes along. But we felt there was some good, meaty subject matter in these op-eds. They're all written from the perspective of veterans and people that have been there and sort of done that, and people that are concerned about the erosion of the path to those kind of positions. If we put it into a book, it might open up another avenue to basically express ourselves. And we wouldn't be on your show right now if we hadn't done that, or the other shows that we're on, because it opens up an interest in finding out what are you guys all about, and what same kind of questions you've been asking. So I think the book, I've been reading through the book now, because this is the preview article to make sure everything is correct. It's really quite an interesting book, because a lot of different perspectives are there. Some are humorous, some are squadron life, shipboard life type stuff. Some are very serious about what we've observed and what we've seen. I recommend that people read the book, and you have to sort of take your time to read through, because there's a variety of different articles in there, but take the message seriously that's coming out of having the book, which is increasing awareness, trying to take the sleepy population. It's hard to tell whether people are just ignoring the issues that are happening or supporting the issues that are happening. And there's obviously, we're a polarized nation right now, and I think people come down on both sides of that argument. But there's a big group in the middle that is content with the way things are, and I don't think they really understand the way things are or where things are heading. So we hope to increase that understanding.
And John, if I was from my standpoint, I mean, it's all about what you said earlier, meritocracy. And, we're for programs that enhance capability, accountability, unit performance, cohesion, et cetera. And some of these initiatives, I mean, they, again, as I said earlier, they're inconsequential to what we really need to develop an effective fighting force. And to the best of my knowledge, there aren't any studies that show that these are effective, that these programs are effective, the mystical benefits actually have an ROI. So, I mean, our question is, why are you doing that if it's straying from our core principles and values, which have kept this country safe and our military has performed so honorably and capably over these centuries?
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Don't fix the things that are working. Fix the things that are broken. There are things that are broken in the military, and I think probably, those things are, those lessons learned were been paid in blood, and I think the military does a really good job forcing those lessons learned onto younger sailors and younger junior officers when you come into the fleet. That you learn those lessons that have been paved in blood, and I think that that's I think we do a good job generally, at least when I was in, we did a good job learning those lessons and making sure that we're putting together a fighting force that can actually that can actually defend the country when called upon. So anything that erodes that is a major concern, I would think. And so you are right to call attention to it because especially these days, I mentioned before we press record, my son has a combat action ribbon. I don't have one. I did not serve in combat. My son has already had to because of the stuff happening in the Middle East. And so our sailors are having to fire in anger these days. And so we better have qualified commanding officers, division officers, and sailors that know what to do. I mean, because it's the world has become more dangerous, not less dangerous in the past 10 years.
I think if you look at the three things that Fred mentioned earlier, and just take the first two, recruiting and retention, if you survey and interview folks that are in that part of the equation right now, you get feedback, and the feedback is pretty free flowing. That it's the loss of attention, it's the forcing in of things that are not shouldn't be in the bandwidth of developing leaders, like a divisive identity politics, like pitting races against each other. Those kind of things take up space. You only have so much bandwidth in a human. If you don't have retention and you don't have recruiting and you have an all-volunteer force, eventually you're going to go back into a draft situation if you're not careful, because you've got to have the readiness piece. And the readiness is a function of manning and crews and all the rest of that, training and everything else. So that's kind of the equation. And I think a lot of people have lost sight of how important it is to stay focused on these kind of things, particularly in the military side of our society.
It's interesting. You guys both have mentioned that politics are incredibly divisive these days. Are you concerned that the folks that wrote into this book, the 16 officers that wrote in, are they concerned? Or are you all concerned about taking a strong stand against these politics? And do you think it'll make you a political target? Do you think people use it to create more divisiveness instead of listening to the experience and the way you're presenting it as a way to say, hey, let's be careful where we're headed here? Or do you think that they'll just make you a political target?
I think the answer to that question is yes. Because we've already been pulled into a few, that not just the Calvert Group, but also the STARS Group and the MacArthur Society at West Point are already being pulled into some of these legal debates that are going on, like the Students for Fair Admissions, those kind of things. We're on the map. Hopefully, we're on the map as a voice for good. We've tried to tell the service academies that's our intent. We want to be supporters. We want to be a force for good, not a grenade thrower, that's just raising issues. I don't think we'll be recognized as that by all parties. And I think we'll probably see as we get more and more out there, we'll probably see more and more, adverse reaction to some of the stuff we're doing, in addition to the positive reaction. We have a lot of our contact comes from people that say, hey, I agree. First time I've seen all this coming out, I agree with what you're saying. Some of them are parents of kids that are of people that are in the service right now. Some of them are in the service right now and coming back to us. When the SEALs, there was the SEAL case that was just settled on the COVID issue, we met with the SEALs in Virginia Beach, a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them. And I mean, these are young men that have already been on several combat deployments that had a religious objection to the COVID vaccine. And they were pulling weeds in the BOQ parking lot while they were waiting for someone to solve their case. It was just a travesty. So there are things, and they're more than happy to share their stories with you.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
so the stories are out there, and it's not just a bunch of angry old veterans that are just trying to throw rocks. We're not that at all.
Yeah.
We don't consider ourselves that.
But
No,
you know, John, I'd like to ask you something. I mean, I think it's a sad sign of the times, but I think it's almost impossible to write or say something in today's environment that someone is going to take umbrage with without getting attacked. I mean, you mentioned you put an ad in for a job and you said veteran preferred. I mean, you saw what happened there. And I mean, in many times, you know, if you can't have a reasonable, respectful, and objective discourse with someone just because they don't like your position, well, I mean, it is what it is. But quite frankly, I see that as a problem on their side, not on our side, because we are willing to sit down with anybody and talk and listen to that opinion and not cast aspersions or to criticize somebody. We respect those decisions. But as you know, John, sometimes it's not what you said, it's what you can be attacked for. And yeah, that will happen, but we have thick skin and, you know, go for it.
Well, I think in terms of what you're trying to do, which is make sure that we maintain military readiness. That's first and foremost your priority. In talking with you and reading through what's in the book, that's your priority. That's your focus. Yeah, you're going to probably ruffle some feathers along the way, but I think having a son in the military right now. Please, I want a very capable military, and I want very capable military commanders and sailors around my son. So yeah, I think that that's if that's what we're focused on that you have, that's I would support that position as well, because when I went in, there was on a nuclear submarine there was no room for anything other than 100% commitment to high performance and excellence. And if you weren't there as a crewmate, you weren't on that boat, you were gone. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm used to. Anything less than that, I would say would be terrible, and very risky for the kind of jobs that we did in the military. So who do you expect will buy this book? Who's your audience?
Well, people that think like us is a starting point. We're hoping it's people that don't think like us as much, that are kind of in the middle there. They not really sure which way is the best way to go. Probably haven't been in the military and don't understand the military ethos that requires the kind of things that we've been talking about. If we can have any influence at all on that block, that's really our intent. We're not going to. We got plenty of people that are in the choir that we came from. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of them enjoy reading these articles. But it's really we're never going to get the far other side that's pushing this ideology on everybody and trying to go to a globalist type of a government and all those kind of things that are out there. But there's a big block in the middle, and if we can have an impact on any of that block, I think that we'll consider ourselves to be successful.
That's fantastic. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners about the work that you're doing?
Well, I think take a look at it. If certainly leadership abounds in the military, and your focus has been on leadership, John, and we appreciate you for that. And leadership comes in a lot of shapes and sizes and colors and everything else, but it's leadership, and that's what we need in a time like this.
And John, if I could just add something, I think it's even more important today. We really live in unprecedented times. Okay, the threats are multiple. It's we have China on one side, Russia on another side, Iran and its proxies, Islamic terror. I mean, we're getting hit everywhere. We have all these carrier groups deployed. We don't have enough ships. we don't have enough men. So how are we going to defend our interests if we can't defend our interests? So it puts us in a very awkward situation. And, we're trying to sound the alarm. And, we would rather have something done, before it's too late rather than after. Now, are we alarmists? I don't know. I don't think so. But the danger's out there, and we better react to it.
Well, powerful message. And I really appreciate you both coming on the show to talk about it. How can our listeners find out more about this new book and maybe about the Calvert Task Group? Anywhere they can get more information about what you guys are doing?
We have a website, John, which is quite well done, I think, and it talks about the book, and it talks about the people that wrote the book, and it's calverttaskgroup.org. And if you're interested in the book, you can get a book through the website. Pre-order now, book for sure in about 2 or 3 weeks. And if you're interested in what we're all about and where we came from and who we are, there's a lot about that on the website also. So I think that's the best source for most folks to go to.
Fantastic. We'll put a link in the show notes for those resources, and so that you get a chance to take a look. And again, this book is called "Don't Give Up the Ship." And there's, it's one thing to notice things that are not seem to be going right in the military, but what you guys are doing is you're saying, hey, we have some real concerns, and here's our concerns, and here's what we should probably be doing about it. And you've got some amazing people that contributed to this book. These are no lightweights that have thrown their hat into this thing. Hey, we've got some things to work on. So it's an important work. Whether you agree with it or not, you should probably read it and get their perspective before you judge it. And so we'll put the link in the show notes for where you can get the book. The book is called "Don't Give Up the Ship." I highly recommend it if you're interested in the readiness of our military and what's happening today in the military. This is a book that you probably should read because it's coming from a perspective of people that have been there and done that. So, Tom and Fred, any final words before we close up?
Well, we just appreciate you having us on, John, and giving us a chance to talk about what we're concerned about. And again, I think if you ask us what's really the bottom line is my 12 grandkids and my great-grandson who are just starting out on their journey and making sure that journey is as good as the one we've had.
What he said.
I love it. So this is for our kids, our grandkids, and our great-grandchildren. So love to hear it. Tom, Fred, thank you for coming back on the show and sharing this important work that you're doing on this subject. So thank you again.
Thank you
very much. Okay.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.